Quarters nearby. He was joined by Virginia Senators John Warner and George Allen.
Good afternoon. Senator Warner, Senator Allen, and I have had a chance to be briefed by the Secretary of the Army for a few minutes. We've had a chance then to go out and retour this area. I'm out here to take a look at the progress that's being made. We've been inside the command center and had a look at the planning and what's at work here. And we're certainly very gratified by the work that's been done. We're continue to be dreadfully sorry about the loss of life. But the President just continues to be filled with resolve to not allow this kind of thing to continue to happen to the people of the United States. In the meanwhile, we've had a chance to, as 3 Virginia statewide elected officials, to have a chance to review this situation. We've had dreadful loss of life here, but thank goodness it wasn't worse. The Secretary of the Army expects the Pentagon to get back. Is already in service, but expects, of course, hopefully within a reasonable period of time to have it reconstructed and rebuilt and as good as new. And that is the plan. Americans will not be torn down by terrorists. The freedom of the people of the United States will be preserved. There'll be statements now by the 2 senators. They will answer any questions you may have.
This is a building in which I spent 5 years plus as Undersecretary, Secretary of the Navy, and it has a special emotional feeling for me to return. But I was heartened by the fact that the Secretary of the Army, as we sat in his office, he recounted unit after unit from the Commonwealth of Virginia and expressly stated how well coordinated your office has been, Governor, and all the volunteers from the Commonwealth of Virginia in meeting this crisis and handling it. Tomorrow, the Senate will be back in action. I will be on the floor of the Senate doing everything I can to get the Armed Forces Bill up and acted upon by the Senate. There are many provisions in that bill which are of utmost importance to the men and women of the armed forces. I've done my best to work with the chairman and will continue to work with the chairman and the 2 leaders, Senator Daschle and Lott. But I personally am urging the earliest possible movement on that piece of legislation. We are also, those of us who are chairman and ranking of the Defense, Intelligence, and Appropriations Committee, are getting briefings regularly from the Department of Defense, which constitutes, I think, excellent consultation between the Secretary of Defense and those of us with the principal responsibilities for oversight and review of the Pentagon activities. Yesterday, we met extensively with the Deputy Secretary. As I leave here, I go back into the building where I'll be meeting with members of the Joint Staffs and the Joint Chiefs. George?
Heard a good briefing by both the governor and the senior senator from Virginia on the situation here. What impresses me most, having been here just late last week, is the great progress that's been made. Every one of the times I speak about this situation, you talk about how dangerous it still is for those firefighters and rescue workers in that facility, and they've done a remarkable job. We were briefed on how the remains that are being found are being taken primarily to Dover, Delaware for identification, and how family members would be then notified of that finding. This country has been united. The people who have died in this building, whether in the American Airlines Flight 77 or whether they were those in this building or those who are in New York City, in my view, they're patriots. These terrorist attacks, these vile, vicious attacks on unarmed, defenseless citizens have unified this country like nothing else. We're unified in our heartbreak for those families, the victims, and we're going to do everything we can for them to make sure that their life can return as best as it can to normal, but it never will because there's a void in their lives of whether it's a wife, a husband, a lost father or mother. We're also resolved and unified in this country to determine who are the culprits, who are those who aided and abetted, who harbored, who supported these terrorist attacks. We're going to work with John Warner, the defense efforts, to make sure that the president has the best information from intelligence and our armed forces have the best resources so that those who are surely involved in this have the proper justice and also protect us in the future. Later this week, if it does go forward, on Thursday, on the Commerce Committee, of which I'm a member, we're going to have a hearing on aviation safety. It is my view that never again in this country should a plane be hijacked and the pilots taken over in such a way that one of our commercial airlines could be taken over and be used as a missile in this way. I think our pilots and their cockpit have to be as safe as a vault, and the only way to get in or to get through it is from within. We also need to look at new ways of technology so that there is a signal instantly given from a cockpit to the FAA or to the air traffic controllers that there's a problem in that plane. And as Jim knows, here in Virginia, we have plenty of good technology companies, and certainly Senator Warner knows, as ranking member of Armed Services, technology that can allow that plane not just to be flown, but also to be landed. These are the sort of things that we need to do to increase our aviation safety in this country, for the safety of our country and also for the confidence of air travelers to once again fly the skies and enjoy the freedoms of this country. Thank you.
Take any questions.
Senator Warner,
Yes.
you certainly know the military better than anybody else. We've heard a lot of concern over the last years about funding for the military, readiness for 21st century combat. Are we ready for this?
We are taking every step possible to examine from top to bottom all of our military and security resources. But I would tell you the following, that as we, under the direction of our president, address these wrongs, bring these people to justice, it will not only be the military, it will be diplomacy, it will be economics, it will be a bringing together every possible resource of this nation and hopefully a coalition of nations, which our president, he's to be strongly commended for his leadership and his continuing leadership to get it to be a family of nations. This is a strike, yes, against the United States, but it is against the entire Western world and the values and ideology we stand for. Our military today is re-examining every asset, determining where the monies, the $40 billion that we appropriated, portion of it goes to the military, how it should be reallocated amongst all types of things, from intelligence right down to the foot soldier, to determine how best to meet this adversary, which is called terrorism, and it is 1,000 faces involved with this enemy.
But are you confident that they're ready, though? Are you confident?
I am confident as of this moment we have the assets in our military to address any contingency which our president directs the military, together with other assets, against. Yes.
Yes, they're ready.
Do you have any new information today
Beg
about?
pardon?
Do you have any new information today? What can you tell us about our preparations and our military response?
Well, as I say, I'm going into the Joint Staff, but I have taken the position, since they are sharing with the chairman and ranking of the principal committees a lot of information, I in no way comment on any plans that are now being formulated. Any other questions?
Senator Warner,
Yes.
you must be impressed by what you see here today, the work that's been done to clean up this crater. Could you talk a little bit about that and
Well,
what's been done?
it's not only today. I came over here the day of the accident and have been here, I think, almost every day as our government, except one, and the senator. Each day, we continue to be impressed with the cohesion between a lot of different units, not only from within Virginia, but other states like Maryland, the district, and now we just met a group coming up from Tennessee. It's like a great football team. They take their assignments in their positions, and when the whistle is blown, they go in as a team from whencever they come from. And let me point out one other thing. We're very conscious, of course, of the families who have loved ones, some of whom are still the remains there, possibly a life, who knows. But think of the families of these wonderful volunteers and professionals out here on this scene. let's also pause with an expression of gratitude for the families of the firefighters, the police, and all others who are working around the clock, very, very long shifts.
Senator Allen, talk more about protecting pilots, protecting the cockpit, specifically what needs to be done now.
Well, this is going to be the purpose of the hearing that is scheduled on Thursday, which is aviation safety and security. In my view, we can learn a few things from El Al. As we all, El Al is an airline out of Israel. They have obviously been subjected to suicide bombings and terrorist attacks for many years. The main thing, though, in flying these planes and taking these planes and turning them into guided missiles has been the taking over of the cockpit. That cockpit and those pilots need to be safe and secure. And if you use the attitude or the analogy that I use, that the cockpit ought to be as safe as a vault that only can be opened from within, then you get the idea that whatever may occur in the back may be a problem, but at least that missile will not be taken over, or that plane will not be taken over and used as a guided missile, because in my view, that is one of the key things that we can never let happen again in this country. Now, there are different things that can be done with cameras that the pilots can see what's going on in the back. There may be different ideas, and I'm not going to explore them here publicly, but ideas on how they could be subdued with various methods in the back. But then on top of it all, there needs to be a utilization of technology. And I've been, and John, I know you've been there, and I know Jim has, to Langley Research Center down in Hampton, Virginia. Some of the research that's been done on aviation safety, where the whole flight can be programmed from takeoff to flight to landing without a pilot doing anything but watching it. Now, obviously, there needs to be times where there's variations because of, for example, weather or some event. However, there ought to be a way with GPS, and I've talked to people who are knowledgeable about this, with GPS, that you push a button, send a signal. What happens then is the plane is being, in effect, flied remotely. And so that the terrorists, the hijackers, cannot take over that plane. And that's what we need to do in this country.
Let me address another issue that the governor and the congressional delegation are working on that's of great importance. And that is, in my office this afternoon at 4 o'clock, we're inviting the head of the Federal Aviation Administration, representative of the Department of Defense, the Security Council, President Security Council, and others, the NSC, to talk about National Airport. And I'll yield a moment to the governor here, but because this is a very central issue, because we have another extremely serious threat facing America right now, and that's our economy and our financial situation. Airlines are integral to our overall economy. With airlines go hotels, the entertainment industry, the sports industry, the business travel, all types of things are tied to that. And here we've just finished this magnificent airport in our nation's capital. I appreciate and respect those who, for security reasons at the present time, are examining when it may be reopened. And we'll specifically go into that this afternoon. But I ask the people of this region to be patient, and we have to defer to those who have the knowledge. Because right now, as the Attorney General said last night, Governor, we're not at the point where we can say to America, we're absolutely safe. And given the proximity of National Airport to our principal locations of command and control in Washington, D.C., whether it's the White House, Congress, or other areas, that's a factor that has to be taken into consideration. But I am gravely concerned about the impact on the economy of this particular airport, and I feel that hopefully we can reopen it, because if we are unable for security reasons, I don't want the terrorist world to think that we gave a square inch of territory to what they've done. Governor, you want to speak to that issue?
Well, first of all, I just came from a meeting with the president, and I can assure you all that this country is prepared. The president has to strike a fine balance between reacting hastily in a way that would be less effective than I think the president wants to be. But I can assure you that he is resolved, that action will be taken that will prevent these kinds of attacks on the people of the United States. With respect to National Airport, I had a lengthy budget meeting just this Sunday night, and we're concerned about the impact upon the economy of the state of Virginia by the closure of Reagan National Airport. I'm certainly an advocate for it reopening again, or any other plan that will get this airport or its functions back up and running again at the earliest moment. That would be something that I would want to work with proper authorities in the federal government, the senators, of course, the FAA, and others to make sure that it gets reopened.
Thank you very much.
John, just so you all understand how we're unified in a variety of ways. On Reagan National Airport, obviously all three of us care about national security, but we also recognize that we shouldn't concede to the terrorist Reagan National Airport. It needs to be reopened as soon as is practicable with reasonable security precautions. We also will be joined this afternoon by the leaders of Arlington County, Alexandria, and Fairfax and the Washington Board of Trade, all recognizing how important that is for people in this region, our whole capital region, as well as the nation, to have access to their government, and including the impact on our economy. Clearly, tourism is very important to the Commonwealth of Virginia and to the Washington, D.C. area, and we need to make sure that those small businesses, restaurants, hotels, and motels can get back to normal as soon as possible, because there's a lot of jobs there for good, hardworking people.
The governor's office also will be represented at this meeting this afternoon, and the heads of the principal airlines. You have one last question.
The repairs are finished on the Cole. The repairs are finished on the Cole. Do you believe that it should fire the first shot in this conflict?
The Cole needs some bringing up, training with its new crew, but let me tell you, the Cole was launched the day after this happened, and that is a clear manifestation of the ability of this country to care for our wounded and lost brave people, to heal our wounds, and to come back. There's one other little fact that's of interest. When we were in the Secretary of the Army's office, I was talking about this building. It's interesting. The footings for this building were laid exactly 60 years to the day that this attack was inflicted. That's interesting. The Pentagon cornerstone went down in 1941 on September 11th.
Governor, the message for the terrorists.
Yeah, I think our message for the terrorists is the following. We're going to make sure that our intelligence agencies have the tools that they need. They're going to be permitted to recruit people from within their own ranks. People in terrorist organizations from this point on will wake up wondering whether people within their own ranks are informing to the Central Intelligence Agency, to the FBI, which they shall be doing, and that they need to be concerned about that. In addition to that, the United States is prepared. It's ready. The president, I might say, is not interested in issues like the one about who's going to fire the first shot. The president is interested in making sure he uses the entire array of authority and force available to the people of the United States so that we can deal with this issue. He's going to strike that fine balance between acting correctly and with restraint, and at the same time acting decisively. And there's a fine balance there, and I think the president is striking that balance correctly today. Thank you all very much.
One strong signal that hopefully will be sent to the terrorists is as follows, and our president is working on this, that Arab nations are coming forward to join us, because but a small fraction of the Arab world has the hatred as did these people in this suicide attack. And if those nations come forward and they can provide the information and the insight into this thing and put their shoulder to the wheel, I'm hopeful that that will be the strong signal to those people that their own brothers are not with them.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you all very much.